What's up, guys? Untitled Studios here, and today is going to be the full in-depth 2019 update review for the Samsung Galaxy Note 5. Now, this phone I used as my daily driver for over 2 years, and now that I've officially switched to the Galaxy Note 8, is this still a great phone that you should consider in 2019? Considering that I even bought it when it was pretty much, off the table for a lot of people as far as an option because it just wasn't new enough. But is this still something that you should consider in 2019? Is this still a good phone? And if you can get it for a good deal, especially, should you still consider picking up the Note 5 in 2019? Well, let's find out in my 2019 full updated review of the Samsung Galaxy Note 5 after using it for over 2 years. Now, this is the second time of me recording this video because I had some audio problems with the first one, so I'm just going to scrap that and this will be the full review. So, yeah. So basically to start off, there's not really a whole lot to start off with other than, I guess we'll look at the design. So the Note 5 was the first Note series, or the first Note in the series, to basically have the aluminum design with the glass back. I have a D-brand skin on mine. I never did an official review of this D-brand skin because I felt it was kind of pointless to do a full review on a skin. But I did really like this. On my Note 8, I'm not going to be using a skin on it. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Same story with all my other glassback Galaxy phones. So, but this is what the D-brand skin looks like, and it does fit very nicely. And I do really like it, and I do recommend D-brand. Especially, I loved this dragon kind of skin. Like, it gave it a lot more grip, and I could actually use it. Because whenever I'm in the house, I don't like to use a case on my phone when I'm in the house. And I don't have to worry about really dropping it because it's in my house. There's no concrete or anything. So, I can very easily just use it, and the back gives you some grip, and the aluminum sides are they're slippery, yeah, but as long as your hands aren't greasy or sweaty, then you're honestly pretty much all right. So, as far as the design of the Note 5, you have, looking around the design, you have the 5.7-inch screen on the front that's 2560 by 1440 in this direction, Quad HD, Super AMOLED, drop dead gorgeous. This screen is still beautiful. Let's go into the display settings. And as we can see, if we go to our display settings, this is still full Quad HD, and keep in mind, this is the latest software, so there's no more updates anymore. However, this is, we have the screen resolution. I don't know why this isn't... Okay, yeah, so we have the high performance mode, but you can change, if we turn that off, let me turn off the high performance mode. So, turning off high performance mode, which is a nice option as well, so if you need to get that extra boost, I've been running it on it pretty much constantly, but if I turn that off, you have different screen resolution options. We can turn it from a Galaxy, come on, focus. We can turn it from a Galaxy all the way down to full HD, like a lot of the Huawei phones, a lot of the more budget phones, and then even all the way down to the screen quality of an iPhone, although it'll still be a much better screen because it's AMOLED, and it's a lot bigger screen in a smaller body than even the newest iPhone 8 Plus. Not to take shots at Apple, but there's something that's nice about the Note 5, is that this screen goes all the way to the edges, still no curves, screen protectors, as you can tell, fit perfectly, no issues whatsoever. Unlike with a lot of other phones, my Note 8 right now doesn't have a screen protector, and it's gotten some decent amount of scratches on it. My Note 7, as you can tell, has one of these cheesy non-edge screen protectors on it, and this is frankly not a very good solution. So I will admit that is a negative of these edges. It does feel really nice, but it's understandable why someone might not like this because screen protectors are a major pain in the neck with these newer Galaxy phones. Note 5 does not have this problem. So if you are not a fan of the newer Galaxy phones, maybe you were looking at the S10e or maybe the S7 because you want just a phone without the curves, you don't really care how old it is, pick up the Note 5, or at least consider the Note 5 because that's a fantastic option. You still have the 5.7-inch screen. Now, keep in mind, because it doesn't have the curved edges, it is a little bit of a thicker phone than some other phones. If we compare it to the Note 4 that it was directly replaced, we can tell that the Note 5 does have thinner bezels on the side, as you can tell. So, as a result, the Note 4 is a substantial amount wider than the Note 5. So that is something to keep in mind, is that when you have both of these in your hand. They're not going to feel exactly the same. Note 4 is going to feel a little bit chunkier. Note 5 is going to feel really nice in the hand. However, the disadvantage of the Note 5 is that because of these thin bezels, sometimes you'll be touching stuff on the screen, and that's actually something a lot of people don't even mention, that they actually kind of fixed that with the 7, because with the 7, if you're holding it like this, you can still hold it all the way, even wrap your fingers around, and it's still responsive all the way. You know, you can still use it perfectly fine. Whereas with the Note 5, if you're squeezing it and you're trying to use it, you know, you'll be like, look at this. You'll be blocking stuff. You can't use it properly. I don't even know what I just did. So that is one thing that they actually did fix with the newer curved screens, is that if you're trying to use it without a case, you actually would have a better time from a usability standpoint from an edge screen device that has the edges on the curves. At least a Note with the curved edges. The Galaxy S series has a little bit more drastic edges, so they might be just as bad as this is. So, but if you're shopping for a Note, then keep that in mind. The thin bezels are a problem with this device, and that's not as much of a problem on newer Galaxy phones, despite what you would think with the curved edges. So you kind of trade that off. You know, you get the nice screen protectors. You don't have to worry about any image distortion, but you also have the thicker form factor, and you have the fact that you can hold the sides pretty easily. Because again, comparing the form factor to the Note 7, the 5 is also just a little bit thicker, or wider I should say, than the 7. So the Note 5 does feel a bit beefier in your hands than the Note Fan Edition, so keep that in mind. And I'm sorry if this is not, maybe I'm too close, so this just isn't focusing all that well. There we go. But yeah, so that is one thing. The design of this is gorgeous, but you know, that is one thing to keep in mind about the screen that a lot of people have had questions about, so I wanted to answer that. You have the buttons on the side, which these buttons are amazing. Now you have the lock button, you have the volume buttons. Here's what I like. I like how the volume buttons are separate. On my Note 8 and on this Note 4, the volume buttons are a single piece. I don't like that because they're not as clicky, and it just doesn't feel as nice. I love this, how these buttons are separated. You have distinct volume up and down buttons, and they're very easy to reach. Again, this is something they did make them a little bit lower on the chassis with the 7 at least. I know with the 8 and then now the 9, the buttons have crept slowly back up to the top. And with the S10, I mean, the button's like damn near on the top again because it's so close to the top. But with the Note 5, that's not an issue. Even if you have relatively small hands, you'll still be able to reach the lock button just fine, and the volume buttons are a little bit more out of the way, as they should be. I've heard some people say that since these buttons are directly opposed to each other, that you can like mash the volume when you're trying to hit the down button. And the entire time I've owned my Note 5, I think I've maybe done that once. So don't worry about that too much, at least in my experience. I have decently, like I don't have large hands, but I don't have small hands either. I'm 5'11", so I have, you know, I can hold all these notes with no problems. You know, I can hold these, no issue. Where's my Note 3? I can hold this with no issues. You know, I can reach the top of the screen with no problems. So that is something to keep in mind. If you have smaller hands, then if you have smaller hands, then just get the S7. You might want to spring for the Galaxy S7, or if you need to save some change and you like the design of the Note 5, maybe go with the S6. But, you know, as far as just, you know, the design and like the usability of it, it's fantastic. You also have the fingerprint sensor on the front, which is beautiful. Like, this is so handy. You double tap it and it opens up the camera, which is super nice and super handy. The quality of it is still really good, as you can tell. The camera is just overall still really good on the Note 5. In fact, my lock screen photo, this is one of the first pictures I took. This probably isn't going to do it justice, but this picture I took with the Note 5, and it's a gorgeous picture. So the camera on this is still very, very good. You have plenty of options in the camera as well. So you got all, you know, live broadcast, you got collage, selfies, virtual shots, a few different options. You also got some filters as well. And just like with the Android 7 Nougat update, you have the swipes to change between camera modes, you know, so that is a new feature that was adopted from the 7. So as you can see, it has the same thing where you just swipe for the camera, and then, you know, you'll end up, hold on, but yeah, so you can swipe through the camera and it works the exact same way. You are missing some features, of course. As far as like, with this one, you get like different, more filters. A lot of these you can actually download on your Note 5. So if you want like the extra food and panoramic options, you can actually download those onto your Note 5. So that's cool. So overall, the camera experience on the Note 5 is just overall fantastic. Keep in mind, I was using this as my main camera all the way up until just now, and I will use this one, I will likely use this or the 7, one of those two, one last time to film my Note 8 review, and then officially retire this. I'm not actually going to be keeping this specific one because as you know, I'm collecting all the Galaxy phones, and the ones that I'm collecting, I want to be my favorite color. So in the case of the Note 4, it's the gold. In the case of the Note 7, it's the blue. And in the case of the Note 5, it's the silver. So this is the black sapphire color. So if you're wondering, the Note 5 is available in 5 different colors. You have black sapphire, white pearl, gold platinum, silver titanium, and I think it's just called pink gold. It's like a pink, like a rose gold type of color as well. That one you're not going to be able to find as easily. The silver one you're not going to be able to find as easily. And then the gold, the white, and the black in the States, you'll be able to find all of those relatively easily. Black and the white being the most common, but the gold is almost as common. So those are, in the US, your main 3 color choices that you're going to find on native soil is the black, the white, and the gold. So those are all beautiful colors. Personally, the black sapphire is my second favorite color. In fact, with every single Galaxy phone, ever since the Note 4, the black is always my secondary option. I think the only exception to that is probably the Note 9, now that they have more colors of that. But for all the other phones, black is my second choice for all the colors. So the Note 8 that I got now, I wanted to get the blue one, but I got the black one. You guys saw that in my unboxing video. So yeah, the black sapphire color still looks nice. This is still a gorgeous phone. It looks and feels very premium. I hate it how a lot of these reviewers, and I don't mean to knock on them, but how like with older devices like the Note 3, they would constantly bicker about how, oh, this isn't a premium feel because it's not metal on the sides, and the back isn't glass, and I don't like it. It doesn't feel as premium. I hate that. But here's the thing, it's all subjective. So if you like, let me peel this case off. So if you like the older design of the older Galaxy phones, if you liked the option to take your battery out and expand your storage, or at least like underneath the back cover like this, then you're going to prefer the Note 3. But these designs are completely subjective. You may prefer the design of the Note 3 or the Note 5. But what's important to know is that if you like a easily removable battery, then you're not going to get that with the Note 5. I'm sure you all know this. Same thing with expandable storage. This is the only Note device ever that does not support expandable storage, which does suck. So if you use any heavy amount of storage, go for the 64 gig version. There is no 128. That's extremely annoying, and I'm very mad at Samsung for not making a 128 gig version, even though they literally did that with the S6. So, and also regarding the S6, the IR blaster, something they removed from the Note 5. I'm just as angry about that as I was initially. I mean, come on. How hard is it to add one to the top? And obviously with the newer phones, they still didn't add one to the top. Samsung, if you're listening, bring back the IR blaster. Please. Note 10, let the Note 10 be the one where you do it big. Bring back the IR blaster. You brought back the expandable memory with the Note 7. We all remember that, and that made this thing still a great phone. It had most of the power user features, including USB Type-C and all that stuff, and expandable memory, but it just didn't have an IR blaster. If you had put an IR blaster on this thing, it would have been perfect, and then, plenty of people would have been willing to make the battery sacrifice because you had all the other power user features. And frankly, if someone's techie enough, even mildly tech savvy, you can replace this battery with no issues. All you have to do is just pry off the back cover, undo some screws, pull the frame off, and then the battery's right there. Yes, that's more steps than you should have to take. And later Galaxy phones, the battery's a lot easier to replace because you don't have to remove the entire mid-frame. But it is something you can do, and something that I would recommend if this device is getting old, because my particular unit, once in a while, will have a problem where the battery will drain a little bit faster than it should. So if you're getting one of these devices and the battery isn't good, replace it and you'll be fine. You can even get higher capacity batteries, ones that are like 3200 milliamp hours, 3300 milliamp hours. You can get those and they'll still be the same size. And, assuming they're good quality, hopefully they won't explode on you. But as you can tell, I'm not really the biggest stickler as far as worrying about that kind of thing. But you may be, obviously. No one wants their phone to explode. So if you do replace the battery, be very careful or just have someone do it for you. But, that's not the end of the world as far as the removable battery goes. You can replace the battery. And whenever this has a fresh battery in it, the 3000 milliamp hour battery in this performs very well. Whenever I first got it, I was getting 5.5 hours of screen on time, and you can go look at my old Note 5 review if you don't believe me. I was getting 5.5 hours of screen on time, at least 5. And, right now, the battery has worn down a little bit on both my Note 7 and my Note 8. So both of those actually get worse battery life than this did when it was new, which makes sense because they were both used. They were both a little bit old. So that is one thing, is that if this has a fresh battery in it, the battery life is outstanding, considering the size of it and how big this screen is. And people bash the Note 5 way too often with the battery, myself included initially. But keep in mind, the Galaxy S9, a very recent phone, still had a 3000 milliamp hour battery and had a bigger display than this did. And, granted, people were complaining about the battery then, but you can't really knock the Note 5 for having an obscenely small battery when newer Samsung phones have that feature or have that same size battery. So, and again, it's the same story where people were bashing, whatever, bash whatever phone for whatever battery reason. Now, with the Note 9, Samsung did it right. With the Note 7, Samsung almost did it right. But, there were obviously two problems with that. Number one, the optimization of the software wasn't as good, so you weren't getting massively better battery life than the Note 5 was, despite being a significantly larger battery. And two, the obvious flaw that once in a while that battery would actually be defective. So, however, ignoring that second point, let's say you either have a good battery like I do, or you replaced it with a third-party battery that was fine. Then the battery life on a Note 7 would actually be a little bit better than this. However, both phones do worse than the Note 8, because even though the Note 8 has a smaller battery than the 7 and it's slightly bigger one than the 5, the optimization on the Note 8 is really, really good. So you will likely get better battery life with the Note 8 than the Note 5, but it's very close. It's within spitting distance, and assuming your battery's in good shape, the battery life on this is excellent. So granted, it's not, insane, but people forget that compared to the Note 4, which the Note 4, a lot of people said was the power user's haven phone and had great battery life, the battery life was actually better on the Note 5 than it was on the Note 4. So, people will complain about that, but in retrospect, or actually looking back at the way things were back then, it's really not all that different. The only difference is that you can't take it out, which, yes, some people aren't going to like that, but you do get some nice things in exchange. You do get fast charging, just like the Note 4, and you also get wireless charging and fast wireless charging. So you can pop this thing on a wireless charger, and it'll go from 0 to 100 in 2 hours. That's fantastic. That's a great feature. And it does future-proof this phone quite a bit, even though it doesn't have USB Type-C, which is a nice feature that a lot of these newer phones have, especially in the Galaxy lineup. But that is something that's not necessarily a problem, because micro USB is still well supported. You can still find cables for it pretty much all over the place. And the advantage is that, yes, well, in the future, USB Type-C will be a lot more prominent, and trying to find micro USB cables will be harder. At the exact moment, micro USB cables are still extremely easy to find, so you might actually have an easier time finding a charger than your friend who has an S8 or an S9 or something like that. So that is something to keep in mind. You have the older standard, but it's still a perfectly fine, it still works just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So charging is perfectly fine. The quality of the overall build is great. The camera's great. And, it's honestly, there's not really many complaints that I'm finding so far with it. It's still holding up very, very well. So now let's move on to the speaker. Now, the speaker is not too bad. Compared to the Note 7, it's about on par. Same thing with the S7 Edge. And with the Note 8 speaker is a little bit better, but you don't get any kind of stereo speakers. You don't get that at all until you step up to the Note 9. And as far as, the quality of the speaker, it's not bad. if I play a quick song here, the speaker does sound pretty okay. So don't be worried too much about the speaker quality. Yes, it's not the best, but it does have the single firing speaker, and considering that it's a single bottom mounted firing speaker, it's still a decent speaker. So don't be worried about that too much. And then of course you have a fantastic display that still holds up very well in 2019. The thing I love about Samsung is that the screens are legitimately so good that this phone that's, 4-ish years old now, almost 4 years old now, is legitimately way better than the majority of the phones that are coming out of the market, even to this day, which is extremely impressive. So this screen is still of fantastic quality, and don't be worried about the entire media experience on the Note 5 because it's excellent. And one thing a lot of people don't mention as far as single firing speakers is that if you're going to do a single firing speaker, then well, granted, this isn't the best place to put it, because if you're going to do a single firing speaker, then do what Motorola did and just reuse the earpiece speaker. So, that's what I would recommend. However, the bottom firing speaker actually isn't the worst place. Now, looking at the Note 4, where the speaker is on the back, that's the worst place to put a speaker. But as far as it being on the bottom, it's fine. Everyone complains about the whole cup thing. How you have to have your hand in a certain position to, make the sound go through and sound all right. I don't really know about that. Haven't really had any problems with that. And one thing that people don't actually talk about with single firing speakers is that if you forget to mute your phone, or you get a notification that goes off in your phone, you don't want your phone to be making any noise, maybe because people are sleeping or in a meeting or whatever, then because it's only one speaker, you can just like cup it really quick and it'll completely mute out the speaker. Now obviously you don't want to do that long term because you could damage the speaker, but in a pinch, that is one thing that you can't really do with dual speakers unless you remember to just like cover the entire phone. So that is one advantage to having a single firing speaker a lot of people don't talk about, that I think actually does come in handy sometimes. So the speaker isn't the best, but it's definitely far from the worst too. And you guys just heard the sample that I just played, and it's all right. It definitely gets the job done. So I wouldn't be worried about the speaker. That's not an issue that really affects me. Now, one thing that a lot of people would say is that they'd rather have a speaker like this than not have a headphone jack. Now, thankfully, with the Note 5, you do indeed get a headphone jack. So you can plug in all your old headphones. You don't have to worry about that at all. I don't know why this isn't focusing, but you got your headphone jack right there, and it's just a great thing to have, because it can come in handy, especially when you need it. And even if you don't need it, it's just something that's very handy to have. So that's definitely nice. You have a lot of options with that. You also have one thing that people forget to mention is that all these Galaxy phones have USB on the go support, meaning you can plug in a little adapter that will convert to full size USB or to an SD card slot or whatever the case may be, and you can plug a flash drive into your phone or plug it into another phone, plug it into your computer, do whatever. This port, you can do a lot of things through it. So if you're worried about the SD card and you don't mind something sticking out of your phone, like let's say you need the SD card because there's a certain period where you're filming videos or you're watching movies or something, and you have your phone propped up, that you can just have that plugged in and be streaming your media directly off that. And because you have the wireless charging, then you can still be charging it while you're doing that. So that's a great thing. So yes, it's still extremely unfortunate that they completely cut the expandable storage, but that is something to at least hold you over. And of course, if you do really, really not like that storage situation and you want a newer phone, then obviously you can go with the Galaxy Note 8 or the Galaxy Note Fan Edition if you really need that expandable storage. But like I said, you would be sacrificing that flat display if that's something that you are into. So also, as far as the speaker, as far as call quality goes, I have no complaints. Just like in my original Note 5 review, there's really nothing objectionable about the call quality on this device. I've never gotten any complaints from anyone as far as call quality or the "can you hear me now?" I've never had any problems with that. So as far as speakerphone, as far as regular phone calls, as far as Bluetooth, none of that's been an issue. I will say that I did notice that with my Note 8, because it has Bluetooth 5.0, the range on the Bluetooth is so much better on the Note 8. On the Note 7, it's marginally better because the Note 7 does have a slightly newer version of Bluetooth than this does. I forgot the exact version. But Bluetooth range is still normal, about 30 feet. So if you have a wireless headset like my Samsung Level U Pros, or if you have, your if I can actually show it, if you have your Gear smartwatch, then that all connects just fine. And, honestly, wireless connectivity is no issues with this. When I was on Verizon using this is originally a Verizon Note 5. I've had no issues as far as, actually getting cell services, at least anything that the device would actually be fault of, because obviously with any cell carrier, you're not going to have 100% signal all the time. But in my area, Verizon is the most stable and the most consistent as far as actually getting a good signal. So that is something. I will say that because this is a Verizon unit, having the Verizon bloatware is really annoying. So I disabled all of that. But there's, like I even disabled the voicemail, so all the Verizon crapware is pretty much off. But unfortunately, you can't fully uninstall it. You just have to disable it. But of course, if you get a different carrier version or if you shop unlocked, then that will solve that problem. Also, the the Note 5 is one of the last Samsung devices. Well, not last, but this was back whenever if you had Verizon or AT&T in the US, then that you would actually have the branding on the back of the phone. Now, thankfully, this is something that they don't do anymore with the Note 8. My Note 7 is T-Mobile, so it doesn't show that. But back when T-Mobile used to do branding, that's on my Note 3. So the Note 5 will sometimes have carrier branding like that. And unfortunately, you can't, just easily peel the back off and put another one on. It is glass, so you would have to pry off the back cover and install another one if that logo for your carrier really bothers you. Or, of course, again, just shop unlocked, and you shouldn't have an issue with that. But I mention that because it is something that bothers me, especially if you're using clear cases or something like that, and having that big check mark or that little whatever AT&T's logo is can get kind of annoying, and it kind of takes away from the design of the phone. So that is something to keep in mind, and especially with bloatware and stuff. So if you have any problems with the software as far as it slowing down or anything, then get rid of all that bloatware first and try to optimize the phone a little bit more, because unfortunately that is kind of the culprit. They bloat a lot of these applications that are unnecessary on the phone. I literally was just helping out a good friend of mine where her S8 was having problems. It was opening things all over the place, and it was such a huge pain. She was literally like about to throw her phone out the window because she was messing with it for like 45 minutes trying to get her S8 to stop doing dumb things. And of course she got it through Verizon. So that is one thing I will recommend. If you can help it, stay away from carrier versions unless you just don't care, or unless that's not something that bothers you, or if that's your only option. But, because unlocked will always help out with longevity of these older devices, because software updates are usually better. You have less bloatware, so the system's more clean and more fresh. And especially if you don't have that carrier anyways, then it's just a lot of stuff that gets in the way. Although Verizon units are great for using on other carriers because they have so many different bands. So, but it's just kind of one of those things that I felt the need to mention because it does bother me. But as far as the software goes, the software on this is still really good. I mean, obviously everything still runs fairly speedy. Let me think. When was the last time I factory reset this? So, well, while I'm here, I am going to show a lot of the Verizon stuff. So if I'm scrolling through my apps, you can see that there's plenty of, oh, if I can't find it. I know there's some Verizon crap that I had on here. Now I'm struggling to find anything. Yeah, my Verizon services, all that kind of stuff. There's just a lot of, oh geez, a lot of Oculus stuff. So there's just a lot of Verizon kind of crap on here. I disabled as much as I could. There were even some things I was able to force uninstall with an administrative app. So that's why some of that stuff is gone, because I was able to fully uninstall it. But of course, the moment I factory reset the phone, that's all going to come back. So it's just really annoying. But again, if you shop unlocked, then that won't be an issue. But if you're having problems with the phone's performance, then try that, because that is pretty much an Achilles heel of these older devices. However, the software on this is still very good. Now, of course, this phone was updated to Android 7.0 Nougat, so you have plenty of options as far as having up-to-date software. Now, granted, Android Oreo is the newest version on most of the phones out there in Samsung's lineup, but Android Pie just came out with the Galaxy S10. Don't expect to see that on this device. Don't expect to see even Oreo on this device, which was kind of sad because I really wanted to see Oreo. But Nougat will still hold up just fine. As far as software goes, don't be worried about the performance at all. It's still very snappy. It's still very, very good. It's just one of those things where, if you use the phone for quite a while, then it might bog down. But, pretty much I haven't had that many issues with it. And I'm actually going to go, because I actually forgot when was the last time that I actually factory reset this phone. It was a little bit ago. It's probably somewhere in here. Oh yeah, here we go. So, yeah. So as you can see here, it says factory data reset. I actually reset this on October 21st, 2018. So that was about 6 months ago. And, this has been performing perfectly fine. It will stutter once in a while. It will kind of bog down once in a while, but that is kind of partially my fault. I'm a very heavy user. I'm always doing a billion things. The storage is always full on this too, and that doesn't help with performance. So again, if you have any issues with storage, get the 64 gig version. If you don't store a lot of things on your phone, then 32 should do you just fine. But that is something to keep in mind, that can have an effect on system performance, is however much storage you have. But you also have some you have some apps that can help out. I know the unlocked version has a device maintenance tab. Verizon versions, get rid of it because Verizon sucks and they don't want your device to run good because they'd rather, let's be honest, they'd rather have your device run like crap, so you would go there and buy a new phone. So, but still, even with all that, performance on this device is still great. And let's go over some of the nice features. Now, you don't have the always-on display like you have on a lot of the newer phones, but you do have some nice things that were added with the Android Nougat update, and just some features in general. So, like I mentioned, the fingerprint sensor is still great. You still have the capacitive buttons, physical home buttons. Buttons are great. Just buttons, buttons, buttons. Great stuff. And, so that's not an issue. As far as obviously you have the Android Nougat. A lot of stuff still works with it. I have yet to see a single app that doesn't work on this software. In fact, there's even an app that I use called Write on PDF that right now I'm struggling to get working on my Note 8. So that's something to keep in mind. Regarding the S Pen, now the S Pen on this is amazing. Now, granted, if you're not going to use the S Pen and you don't care about the S Pen and you don't care about the Note 5 specifically, then I would honestly not necessarily get it unless you get a good deal on it. Don't go out of your way to get the Note 5 unless you're going to use the S Pen. If not, the only other reason I could think of is if you hate the curved screens, because then otherwise I'd recommend get an S6 Edge Plus or S7 Edge. But if you don't like the curved screens, then that's where I could see an argument for getting the Note 5, even if you don't use the S Pen. But the S Pen is definitely the reason why you buy a Note. And don't underestimate it, because even though this is an older S Pen, there's nothing wrong with it. Now, as far as features go, when the Nougat update came out, they increased a lot of the features that were available for this device. A lot of the features from the Note 7 were ported over. You do still have the legacy S Note app, but you have Action Memo, which is great. So you just pop that open, and then you can just instantly write a note. So if I just want to write down something, and I'm looking through the viewfinder of my Note 8. So, but either way, and then you can save it. And one thing you have is Link to Action. That's a very good feature, is that you can actually link it to a certain action. So let's say if I write down a phone number and I want to call, or I write down an address, I want to, search it, fantastic. And this is something that's extremely underrated. So if you get in the habit of using these notes, let's say you're on a phone call. I've done this before. When you're on a phone call and someone says, "Hey, I need you to write down this number." So pull out your pen, open the carousel, which opens by default, open Action Memo, write down the phone number, and then once you get off that call, click the link to action, and then hit the phone, and it will call that number. That is really, really useful. Like, legitimately, like, that's such a time saver, and it's a very, very nice feature. And these are part of the reasons why I love the Note series, because you have little things like that that just make sense and are extremely intuitive. Also, with the Note 5 regarding as far as regarding also taking notes, you also have screen off memo, which granted, with the Note 7 you had 2 pages, with the Note 8 you had up to 100 pages, with the Note 5 this is the only canvas you get, but nevertheless, pull the pen out whenever the screen is off and you have an off-screen memo that you can take. This is also a lifesaver. I'm very forgetful, and that's something a lot of people who know me personally know. I'm very, very forgetful. So write a note down, save it. In fact, if you forget to press save, so let's say I want to write myself down a note. So I'm going to say subscribe to Untitled Studios. So if you want to say to subscribe to, if I want to say, hey, I need to subscribe to Untitled Studios later, I can't forget this. It's a great channel. I just really need to remember to do that whenever I get home. Great. Write it down. Put the pen back in, and that's another thing. You can put the pen in either way, but don't put it in this way. I'll get into that later. And then it will automatically save it. And then here's the kind of what I've gotten into as far as habit. Then whenever I get home, pull the S Pen out, open up my carousel again, which again opens by default, but I like to turn it off because sometimes I like to use the pen without opening any of these and just use it like a mouse almost. So, but I open this up, go to my S Note, and then boom, it's in my action memos, and I can open it back up and look at all my notes that I've taken for the day, and then be reminded of anything that's going on. So that is incredibly handy. Now this is S Note. This isn't the newer Samsung Notes that you get with the newer phones, so we'll be a little bit older, but you have Action Memo, which is a fan favorite among many Note lovers because of that link to action feature that I mentioned. It's super useful. If you get any use out of that, it makes the Note 5 worth every penny, hands down. So you also have a couple different features. You have screen write, which that's great. So if I need to take a screenshot, it'll screenshot the whole thing. You also have scroll capture. So if you're taking a long screenshot, you can do that. But for now, I'm just going to draw on this. So if I want to point to something that I need to, let's say I need to organize my not categorized thing, and I can write, check this. And then once I do that, I can save it and share it, whatever I need to do. You also have scroll capture, which is fantastic. So let me show you an example of that. Let's say I want to go to the news. So I want to go to the news, and let's see. Okay, so let's try to pull up something that's relevant today. So let's say I open up a news story. I'm reading the news, right? And then whenever this article decides to load, but yeah, so let's say I'm reading the news or whatever, and I'm trying to screenshot it, maybe I'm whatever, and I want to open up screen write. So I can open up screen write, and there's this option called scroll capture. So if I can focus in on that, scroll capture. So you hit that, and then it will actually automatically scroll the page. Now with this, it might not work the best, but as you can see, we have the scroll capture, and I can scroll it again. Now this one's not working, but either way, I would hit done, and then it would capture the whole screenshot. Okay, of course this one decides to not work properly, but it's supposed to, it's supposed to stitch it all together into one big screenshot, and then you can write on it, or you can share it directly from there, or you can save it, or you can crop it too. So if you decide, I only want this headline, and I want to save that, then that's great. I can just hit save, and then boom, there you go. So scroll capture is an extremely useful feature. If you, let's say, here's a perfect scenario that has totally never happened among my circle of friends. Let's say there's some drama going on, and I don't know, maybe one of your friends, like their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, gets into some kind of quarrel, and they were talking to you or something, and they want evidence of a conversation. Well, open up that conversation, use the scroll capture, get everything into one long screenshot so there's no accusations of you cutting out certain parts of the conversation, and it's all one screenshot, and it's all nice and super useful. So there's a real world example of that. Or like I said, if you're trying to catch a Facebook thread or a news article or whatever the case may be, then you can stitch that all into one long document, and it's very, very useful, and it works very well. So dang it, I keep running into my 10-minute windows again. So let's open up YouTube because I want to show another feature. So whenever you open up a YouTube video, you have another feature. Now, this is another feature that was taken from the Note 7. So let's pull up good old MKBHD because he was popping up in the feed here. So let's say, okay, I don't want to, yeah. So there's Smart Select. Now, one great feature about Smart Select is the animated GIFs. So you just highlight this, choose your quality, hit record, and then stop, and then you can save it. So you can actually select different videos, and this doesn't just have to be YouTube, this can be anywhere, and then you can write on it, you can draw on it, and you can save it as an animated GIF. And you can save it, like I mentioned, you can save it in a few different qualities. You can record up to 15 seconds, and then you turn it into a GIF, and you can save that. And also, side note, a lot of people are trying to correct me and say GIF. It's GIF. The person who created it calls it GIF. And a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't like that because it sounds like peanut butter. Yeah, what's wrong with peanut butter? Peanut butter is fantastic. So, yeah. Anyways, so if you want to be able to capture a GIF from any video, and it doesn't have to be a video, it can be like a picture or a slideshow or anything that's moving. I mean, in theory, you can do it with a still image, but it's not really going to do anything. So, you have plenty of options as far as that goes. So, and of course, you can make this, as big as you want to have any video. You can do it, in any orientation. It just works very, very well. You also have some other screenshotting options. So you have the standard rectangle. So if you want to just capture something, that's very simple. You have lasso and oval, just different types. So let's say if I'm on my home screen and I want to show someone, let's say I want to show someone my step count because I want to show them like, hey, I've been working out more, or I've been making more steps. I've been making some strides in my fitness. I can hover over this widget for my Samsung Health. I almost called it S Health. And boom. So then I can actually, do that. You also have the extract text option, which is super handy. So if you're trying to pull text out of something, that's very, very handy. So if you, let's say you got like a Facebook thread or something you want to repost or copy some text you saw on a website, whatever you can think of, this is there and it's extremely useful. And then of course you have auto select as well, so it'll like automatically select what it thinks is the most important of the capture, which I've actually never used this before, but now that I've seen this is actually really cool as well. Dang, even 2 years later I'm still finding out new features about this device. That's crazy. So, and of course again, you can draw, you can share, you can save, do whatever you want. So that is fantastic. And again, these are all features that still work perfectly even in 2019. And you also have Translate. This one is kind of, again, this is just like the Note 7. It doesn't have the newer version where you can translate paragraphs. It can only translate single words. But let's say I want to learn some Spanish, right? So I actually want to go from English to, yeah, I guess we'll just go Spanish again. So let's say I want to figure out the Spanish word for mind. So I'll hover over a mind. And as you can see, recorda. I probably butchered that because I haven't been in Spanish class in like 3 years, but that's okay. So you definitely have the translate option, so that can be very well if you're looking at like a menu or something, or there's just a couple words you need to translate on like a website or something, then you have that option. Now granted, Google Translate will do the same thing, but this is a lot more simple because it's just right with the S Pen, and it works fantastically. So that's not a word, but it is now. So we also have magnify. That's fairly self-explanatory. So if you need to look at, small text, if you're reading like a document or something on your phone and you want to, read the fine print or whatever the case may be, or you just need to see something that's a bit smaller and you don't want to have to change the screen resolution and all that, then this is a great option as well. I don't use this at all, but I'm sure there's plenty of people who can find use to this. There's also glance. Now this is, again, another Note 7 feature that was imported to the Note 5 and still works very good. So let's say I have YouTube open, and I want to open up glance, right? And it'll actually put YouTube in this small little circle, and then I hover over it, and then it opens again. So this is like another form of multitasking. So let's say I want to edit a Word document. I don't know why that didn't work, but I want to edit a Word document. So I want to open up some type of Word document. How about the Note 3 review script? So let's say I'm reviewing that, the script from the Note 3 review, and oops, I drew on it again, but I don't know when this is new, but yeah, so I'm reading the script and I'm trying to reference something. Like, let's say this is a spreadsheet and then this was like an email that had the information I need to put in the spreadsheet. I can do that. I can hover just directly over that and then it'll pop it right up. So I can hover over it and then like, okay, well, I want to check out the comments on this. So, okay, I want to see that's great, and then blah blah blah, so help this company, whatever, and then I hold over it and then I go back to my document. So that's another feature. I don't use that one all too often because I just prefer the standard split screen multitasking options. And especially now with my Note 8 in Oreo, the YouTube will actually open up in a separate window, which is really nice. So I'll cover that in my Note 8 review since I like that feature. But that is also a very handy feature. And then, of course, I have some other things, Microsoft OneNote, shortcut to the gallery, and Write on PDF, which is a super handy app because I've tried to use Adobe Fill and Sign. I hate it. It works terribly. I don't like it. Trying to get this app now is such a pain. It's so difficult to get it working. I finally got it working on my Note 8, and now it doesn't show up anymore, and it's just a pain. But if you can somehow get this app working, you have things where you can write on PDFs. So let's say, I bought a vacuum cleaner a little bit ago, and I used Write on PDF. Oh my God. And I didn't mean to do that. And I used turn on S Pen only. Yes, do that. So, and I used this to write down the model number and the purchase date for this vacuum. So that way, if I ever need to submit any warranty information, granted this is an old machine, so it's not really going to do that anymore, but if I need to buy parts or I need to reference my model number or anything like that, then I can go back into this, which I did back up on my Note 8, and actually have that information written in, which I know a lot of people, when people get service manuals, they always say, oh, write your information in here. Now you can actually have that stuff digitally archived, or if you have a PDF from something, like I just did this with a job application, and I was able to just open it here and then just write on it and then print it out from here. It's fantastic. So again, this is something where maybe you have a different method of doing this, and it's a pain to get Write on PDF working, but once you do, it works beautifully with the S Pen. So that pretty much covers a lot of the S Pen features. One thing I will talk about is regarding the durability of the S Pen itself. Now, this is the first S Pen where you have the clicky top, so that is something that you don't have on the older S Pens. So you don't have that clicky top on the older S Pens. I love this. It's nice because it's a very convenient way to get the pen out of the phone. I don't know why this isn't focusing on the pen. Come on, focus on the pen. So you can still click it just fine. The problem I have is with the long-term durability of these pens. I've broken so many of these Note 5 pens. I've never lost one. I think I've lost one of these pens once. But every other time I had to get a new pen, you can tell this isn't even the right color, was because the pen broke. Because the pen on the Note 5 is extremely fragile. And I don't know what it is, but this is made out of even the OEM ones are made out of a really thin plastic, and it's not good quality, even compared to the old Note 4 and Note 3 S Pens. Like here's my Note 3 S Pen. So the Note 3 S Pen, this is like really sturdy. This just feels pretty flimsy. And the quality of this, like you could probably run this over with a truck and it'd still be fine. This thing, you breathe on it wrong and it breaks, which is really, really annoying. So that is one thing that I have to complain about the S Pen as far as the build quality itself, because looking at the other S Pens, like, where's my, pull out the Note 7 S Pen, this is just built so much better. Now granted, the Note 7 S Pen is also water resistant, but this is just built way better. This, one big problem I had with the Note 5 S Pen was that this part would always separate. Every time these would break, this part would separate. The glue would come undone because the glue on this is really crappy. And with the heat of it being inside the phone, because this phone heats up a lot, then it would melt that glue. And I'd pull the pen out and this part would stay in the phone. I actually had to send this in to Samsung because I pulled the pen out and this part, came out, but then this part was still in the phone. And it got stuck in there. And that happened on 2 different Note 5s several different times. So to the point where I had to send both into Samsung to be fixed. And that's terrible. So be careful with this S Pen. If you're a heavy S Pen user, you might want to invest in some replacements. But overall, the fragility of this S Pen slot is just a pretty negative hit on this phone. You also have pen gate, of course, where you stick the pen in upside down, and if you push it too far, it gets stuck. Now this is an updated Note 5, so they fixed the issue to where it does not get caught on anything. But if you have an early Note 5 and you make this mistake of putting it in backwards, it will get stuck because the little sensor in there will get caught on this clicky part of the S Pen. So be careful with that. Now, I know some people say, oh, you just have to not be paying attention. Yeah, exactly. But you don't want to ruin your phone because you were looking in the wrong direction. So be very careful. Make sure that you're putting it in the right way. And you also have the detection thing that says to put it back in so you don't lose it. But that is one thing, is that the durability of the S Pen is not all that good. Writing with it is fantastic and using it is great, but durability of it, the pen isn't built all that well, and the slot is even more fragile, and it's just really annoying, especially with other devices where they've actually made it, a lot better. So that's one complaint I have. So we covered the S Pen and a lot of the advanced features. You also have a lot of the other advanced features like Smart Stay, where if you look at the phone, it'll stay. You have that palm swipe, which I turn off because it never works. You have direct call, where if you're texting someone, you hold up the phone, it will automatically call them. I turn that off. I think that's kind of stupid, because why not just press the call button? And the last thing I want is to hold my phone in a certain direction and have it automatically call that person when I didn't want to call them, because that could get awkward or annoying. So there are some other advanced features that, I don't use as much, but let's actually go through them because I could be missing something. So in the actual settings, and keep in mind, this is on the newest software, so if you don't see a lot of this stuff, then update your phone. But, you have a lot of stuff as far as advanced features. So if we go into advanced features, we have the Smart Stay, we have all that stuff. You also have game mode, so it can optimize it when you're playing games and turn off these buttons so you don't get rid of your game. You have one-handed mode, so this is very nice. So you can actually just triple click, or you double click the home button, it opens the camera, but if you triple click, it will actually, oops, I forgot I had it set to a different thing where it inverts the colors on a triple click. But you can have it set up where if you triple click the home button, that it will actually make the screen smaller, so it's easier for one-handed use. So I'm actually gonna, let's see, same time as one-handed mode. Yeah, whatever. Okay, great. So now, if I press the home key 3 times, it will do, oh, come on. If I press it 3 times, there we go. So if I press it 3 times in succession, we actually have a smaller display. So I can reach everything on the display. So if you have smaller hands and you need to use it one-handed in a pinch, this works very well. And you have that option as far as actually, making sure that it's more accessible. And you also have other accessibility options as well, of course, so don't zero those out. And we also have a lot of notifications. So let's test performance. We're going to just turn off all these notifications. So just clear, and let's see. Yep, that was really fast. So, no issues there. And if we go back to our advanced features, we have plenty of options for the multi-window, like I've mentioned, palm swipe capture, smart alert, easy mute. This is actually a feature that was on the Pixel now, but it's on the Note 5 too, where if it's ringing or there's a notification, just set your phone face down and it will completely mute it. Now, I'd recommend having a case and a screen protector, but if you have, so if you got a case and set it face down, and then it will stop ringing or stop doing whatever. So that's also a great feature. So now, again, direct call, a lot of the other. You also have easy mode for accessibility, for if you need larger screen to do stuff, or if you're buying this for a family member who needs a more user accessible device. And of course, you have the performance mode, like I mentioned. You have plenty of power saving modes too. So if battery life does become a problem, you have plenty of power saving modes to get you by. Maximum power saving mode will save a crap ton of battery and basically turn it into a dumb phone, but it will save a lot of battery. And then, of course, for memory, this has 4 gigabytes of RAM, the Exynos 7420 octa-core chipset, and the performance on this, like I mentioned, is really good. But, the biggest thing is the 4 gigs of RAM, so it will hold up just fine. Even the newest Pixel still has 4 gigs of RAM, and that gets by pretty okay. So RAM management is not an issue on this. I know that was an issue with the Note 5 early on, but it's been long fixed, so you can still hold, a jillion apps in your memory. I don't have that many now, but you can hold a bunch of apps in your memory, and the phone will not slow down, and it will work beautifully. So you also have some options for accessories. So you have some third-party accessories like cases and stuff. Like I have these Poetic cases. Also, if your phone's too big and you like to use pop sockets, that's always an option where you can get a pop socket for your device. For your case, I would recommend putting it directly on the back of the phone, but for a case, UAG cases I heavily recommend if you want some protection, because these are always my go-to cases. And the buttons still click very nicely. You still have access to everything, and it has a huge lip on the front so you can set your phone face down with no worries. Now, there's also some first-party accessories that you can get. Like I mentioned, you have the Samsung Level U headphones, which I have the Samsung Gear S2, which came out the same year as the Note 5 and is a fantastic smartwatch. If you want me to do a review on that, I can do that as well. And you also have some first-party accessories. Here's the S View flip cover. I did a review on this a while ago, but this is just a little flip cover. I only used this once. It was whenever I went to my cousin's wedding, and I actually did drop the phone in this case because my dress shirt had a shirt pocket. I had this phone in the pocket, and it actually fell out of the pocket whenever we were getting ready, and it actually fell face down with the flap closed, and the phone was perfectly fine. And even with the dbrand skin, it still does fit just fine. So not the most protective in the world, and with the screen protector, it will push up like that, but it's very nice. Of course, you have the options. You have access to a lot of your apps and stuff, and you can still access your notifications and your camera and all that. So if you put a camera shortcut here, then you obviously get access to that as well. So that's a nice case. So this is a nice first-party option if you want to protect your screen and not have a lot of stuff in the way, not have a super bulky case. They also have a version that has a little wallet slot right here, so that's an option too. So first-party accessories are very good too, and I bring this up because if I go to settings and open this up and go to advanced features, we actually, under accessories, we have for the app shortcuts, notifications, your window wallpaper, and then of course you can also disable fast wireless charging. If you want to have it charge a bit slower to preserve your battery health, then you can do that as well and turn that off. And you can turn off the standard fast charging as well if you still want it to charge slower to preserve the battery life and you don't have a lot of time that you need to conserve when charging your phone, but you still want to use the OEM chargers because you don't want to risk them being defective or anything like that, then that's an option as well. So if you don't like fast charging, you'll be fine. You also have different options for notification settings, and you have the gaming mode like I mentioned. And that's pretty much everything as far as all the extra advanced features besides the S Pen. And you also have your device maintenance options as well, options with apps. You also have themes and wallpapers. So if I actually open this up, this has been updated since then. So we have the newer design of the Galaxy Store and all that. Actually, I think this still needs to be updated. But we have a lot of default wallpapers. A lot of these are really nice. We have themes as well. So you can download a billion different themes. I have a dark one enabled right now, so that's very nice. You have plenty of options as far as, theming, so that way you can customize your phone, make it yours. If I open up my messages, for example, then you can actually see that, if I can block this, then you can actually see that there's, it's a dark theme and all that. And if you have, just like, your phone dialer, for example, that's all a different, let me go to the dial pad, that's all a different color and everything. So you can customize it the way you want it. And like I mentioned, obviously the settings as well, that's a dark theme because that's one of the themes that I enabled. This theme is called, for those wondering, because I know people have asked me in my last review, hey, what's your setup on your phone? On this phone, I'm using the, what is this called? At this moment, I'm using the Modern Black theme, and I'm using the Microsoft launcher because I love the Microsoft launcher. I've been using it for quite a while now, and it's my favorite launcher now that I use on all my phones, so I use Microsoft launcher and that theme that I previously mentioned, for those wondering. I always use pure black wallpapers on my home screen. That was something that Flossie Carter did. The way I get a pure black wallpaper is I actually downloaded, this is ironic, so I actually have downloaded one of the Galaxy Note 7 wallpapers, specifically one of these with the S Pens. So you just pull up one of these, and if you want a pure black wallpaper, just download one of these old Note 7 wallpapers with the pens that are pure black in the background. Click Use As, set it to your home screen or lock screen, whatever you prefer, and then just zoom out. So just zoom this out and then pull it over to the black portion, set it as your wallpaper. It doesn't matter how far you zoom in because it's just going to turn off those pixels, and you save battery life. And you can do that on either your home screens, your home or your lock screen, and it looks really nice. It makes the colors pop because this display is very nice. And that's just kind of a little life hack that I like. I like to have a black wallpaper on my phone on my home screen, so I just wanted to share that with you guys. So what else? Again, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I haven't mentioned. Overall, this is still a fantastic phone. I still recommend getting it even in 2019. Performance is great, the features are great, the camera is great, charging's great, battery life is still good providing you put a new battery in it. That's not related to this phone though. You have so many different options. So overall, do I recommend the Galaxy Note 5 in 2019? And the answer is an astounding yes. These devices are going from anywhere from like 150 to like 200 bucks, depending on condition. Pick this up. You will love this phone, and this is Untitled Studios signing out, and I hope you guys have a good one. Peace. Get this phone if you're on a budget and want a Note.